"I consider this disloyal," Rebecca Sloan said, her voice sharp as steel, fingers tapping a printed email between us. She didn't even ask me to sit. I stood there, still holding my purse, trying to catch up. 10 minutes ago, I was preparing for my weekly team call. Now I was being fired. "After everything Summit Edge Marketing has done for you," she continued, eyes narrowed. I opened my mouth to respond, but she cut me off, sliding my company ID across the desk like it burned her fingers. "No need to explain. Security will escort you to your desk. Your building access has already been revoked." That was it. 6 years, dozens of clients, millions in revenue, late nights, unpaid weekends, loyalty, all gone because I took one interview. Rebecca called it betrayal. I called it finally choosing myself. As I walked out with my belongings in a cardboard box, past people who once cheered my wins but now averted their eyes, I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I didn't beg. Because they didn't know the whole story. They didn't know the CEO of Crescent Solutions had just messaged me to move our final discussion up. And they had no idea that the disloyal girl walking out the door was about to walk into something far, far greater. Before we start, take a moment. What time is it right now? And where are you tuning in from? Let me know in the comments. This story, it might feel strangely personal. When I joined Summit Edge Marketing, I was fresh out of grad school, 26, idealistic and absolutely certain that hard work would eventually speak for itself. I started at the bottom, literally. My first desk was a shared cubicle outside the copy room. I fetched coffee, booked meeting rooms, and color-coded reports for account managers who didn't bother remembering my name. But I was eager, fast, and unwilling to stay invisible. Within a year, I moved into a junior account role, taking on smaller clients, often the ones others didn't want: restaurants with tight budgets, real estate firms stuck in the early 2000s, scrappy startups still learning how to spell branding. But I listened. I over-delivered. And slowly, those clients grew. By year 3, I was managing regional accounts worth hundreds of thousands, turning failing campaigns around with limited resources and long nights. Rebecca Sloan, VP, now CEO, started noticing. "That's the kind of hustle we reward," she once told me in front of the whole team. But reward never came. When I landed Granvia Technologies, a SaaS firm notorious for chewing through agencies, it should have changed everything. I built trust with their C-suite, brought their ROI up by 40%, and got them featured in a national business magazine. Their CEO emailed Summit Edge's leadership directly. "Savannah Blake is the only reason we're staying with your firm." That was when I scheduled my first salary review. I came prepared: spreadsheets, revenue growth charts, even a breakdown of my average response time compared to the team average. Rebecca nodded politely, told me, "It's just not in the budget right now." I accepted it. The economy was shaky, or so they said. Besides, I loved my team. I believed in the work. Year 5 came. I brought in 3 new major accounts, won an industry award for a social campaign I designed from scratch, and trained 2 junior associates who went on to win company bonuses. Another raise request, another round of praise, another, "Not this quarter." And through it all, I stayed, loyal, committed. Telling myself the next review cycle would be different. Then came Crescent Solutions, Summit Edge's biggest client to date. When their original account manager flopped mid-campaign, I stepped in without hesitation. I built their trust back from the ground up. They renewed, doubled their spend, and specifically requested me. That should have been the turning point. But instead, 6 months later, I was once again sitting across from Rebecca, hearing the same familiar refrain. "You've been exceptional, Savannah, truly. But we're focused on infrastructure this year. Let's revisit in Q3. Ugh. That was the night I opened my resume for the first time in 6 years. Not because I was angry, but because something inside me had finally whispered what I'd been too afraid to admit. If they haven't seen your value by now, they're choosing not to. It took me 20 minutes just to hit send. The email was short, professional, polite. A simple expression of interest to Crescent Solutions about a potential career opportunity sent through their public contact form. No referrals. No inside contacts. Just my resume and a quiet determination that had taken 6 years to grow strong enough to act. And then I waited. I didn't tell anyone. Not Olivia, not Thomas in IT, not even my roommate. It wasn't shame exactly, it was self-protection. If nothing came of it, I'd still have my pride. If something did, well, I'd cross that bridge when it came. 3 days later, I got a reply. "Hi, Savannah. Your background caught our attention. We'd love to set up a confidential exploratory call with our strategy team. Are you available this week? Best, Crescent Bay talent team. I stared at the screen for a long moment. My heart pounded in a way it hadn't in months, not with fear, but with possibility. The call was set for Thursday at 10 a.m. I took a half-day, marked it as a dentist appointment on the calendar, and sat in my parked car with a notebook and a bottle of water. It wasn't just a screening. It was a conversation. A real one. Their head of strategy asked thoughtful questions about how I handled difficult client pivots, how I built trust, how I structured campaign recoveries under pressure. I spoke easily, confidently, not selling, just showing. And at the end of the call, she said something that stopped me cold. Our CEO, Ethan Cross, is going to want to meet you. You're exactly the kind of leader he's looking for. Me, a leader. Not support, not execution, not reliable team player. A leader. 2 days later, Ethan Cross sent me a direct message. Savannah, I've heard great things. I'd like to schedule a time to speak directly. No pressure, no expectations, just a conversation. You've clearly built something valuable where you are. If you're open to it, I'd love to hear your vision for what's next. I reread it 3 times. No pressure, no expectations. Just a man at the top of a company worth billions, saying he saw something in me. It was the first time in my entire career I felt seen beyond the numbers. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking beneath the word, reply. And finally I typed, yes, I'm open. I barely had time to settle into my desk Tuesday morning before my phone rang. Rebecca Sloan, 9, 0 M.A. sharp. No explanation, no context, just a clipped meeting invite with her initials in bold. I stared at the screen for a second. My heart thudded once, then settled. Somehow, I already knew. As I stepped into her office, she didn't bother standing. She sat behind her massive mahogany desk, manicured fingers tapping slowly on a printed sheet of paper. She didn't smile. I consider this disloyal, she said, lifting her eyes to meet mine. After everything Summit Edge has done for you. I said nothing. She turned the paper toward me. It was a printed email someone had forwarded my interview confirmation with Crescent Bay. One of the admins? IT? Someone loyal to her. You took a half-day last Thursday, she continued. Claimed it was for a dentist appointment. I opened my mouth to speak, but she held up her hand. Don't insult both of us with excuses. She slid my company ID across the desk. Security will escort you. Your access has already been revoked. There it was. 6 years of commitment. 6 years of loyalty. Gone in 5 minutes with no exit interview, no conversation, no thanks. Rebecca looked almost disappointed when I didn't flinch. Maybe she expected me to cry, to beg, to defend myself. But instead I stood, straightened my blazer, and extended my hand. I wish you and Summit Edge continued success. Her hand hesitated before shaking mine. Confused, just for a flicker. As I packed my desk under the quiet watch of a security guard photos, coffee mug, the little plant Olivia gave me, I felt no tears, only clarity. Some coworkers whispered, others avoided eye contact. But a few met my gaze respectful, quiet nods. They knew. They'd seen the work, the sacrifices, the weekends. When I stepped out into the cool Seattle air, box in hand, something strange happened. I smiled, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I wasn't broken. I knew what Rebecca didn't. That same email she printed as evidence of my betrayal? It was the beginning of something bigger. My phone buzzed. Ethan Cross, can you move our final conversation to this afternoon? Say 2 p.m.? I typed back. 2 p.m. works perfectly. And because what Rebecca saw as disloyalty was actually me finally choosing myself. It's strange how 6 years of your life can fit into a single cardboard box. I placed it on my kitchen counter, took one long look, and let the silence settle. The sting of being walked out like a criminal still burned somewhere in my chest, but it no longer defined me. That chapter was done, and a new one was already knocking. By 12:30 I had showered, dressed, and applied the kind of makeup I reserved for high-stakes meetings. Defined eyes, muted lipstick, clean lines. Not to impress anyone, but to remind myself who I was walking in. As I zipped up my navy blazer and glanced in the mirror, I realized I didn't look like someone who'd just been fired. I looked like someone finally free. The Crescent Bay Solutions headquarters sat atop 3 gleaming floors in one of Seattle's most iconic towers. Natural light poured in from every angle. It was bold, modern, expansive, everything Summit Edge wasn't. The elevator opened onto the 30th floor, and there he was. Ethan Cross. Mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, open demeanor, no assistant waiting, no pretentious formality. He stood in reception with 2 coffees and a warm smile. "Savannah," he said, offering one. "Thanks for making time." "Thanks for the opportunity," I replied. Steady voice, steady hands. He led me to a glass-walled conference room overlooking Puget Sound. "This isn't an interview," he began once we sat. "We've seen your work for years. You've kept our brand aligned, responsive, human. That's not just marketing. That's vision." I blinked. "I appreciate that. I need someone who doesn't just execute," he continued, leaning forward, "but builds teams, systems, relationships. We're expanding. It's time." He slid a folder across the table. "Director of Client Strategy. It's yours if you want it." I opened it, heart pounding. The title alone made me pause, but it was the number on the salary line that stopped me cold. Double what I made at Summit Edge. Benefits, equity, flexibility, everything I had asked for and been told wasn't in the budget. I looked up, stunned. "It's not a favor," Ethan said, reading my face. "It's market rate, for someone who knows how to lead, not just follow." He didn't pressure me. "Just let it sit. I don't need an answer now," he added. "Sleep on it. Call me tomorrow." But I already knew. As I walked out of Crescent Bay, the same Seattle sun shone on my face as it had that morning when I left Summit Edge. But now it felt different. Not like an ending. Like a beginning. One I'd finally written myself. The next morning my phone rang just as I poured my coffee. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. "Miss Blake?" The voice was crisp, professional. "This is Meredith Grant. I'm on the board of Summit Edge Marketing." I straightened. "Yes, this is Savannah. I'd like to meet with you, today if possible, regarding your departure yesterday." So, the board was catching up. "I appreciate the outreach," I said evenly, "but I've already accepted a new position." A pause. "May I ask where?" "I'd prefer not to disclose that at this time." "Understood," she replied, tone cooling slightly. "Still, we believe it's worth a conversation. 2 p.m.? I agreed, not because I wanted the job back, but because closure isn't always a gift. Sometimes it's earned. The Summit Edge building looked different this time. It wasn't smaller, but it felt it. Jessica, the receptionist, widened her eyes as I entered. "Savannah, I'm so glad you came. Everyone's talking. It wasn't right, what Rebecca did." "Thank you," I said simply, signing the visitor log. Meredith Grant greeted me in the executive boardroom. Silver hair, tailored navy suit, direct gaze. No Rebecca in sight. "Please sit," she said, motioning toward the head of the table. "I've reviewed your file. Your performance record is impeccable, and the email in question, the one used to justify your termination, was not, in our view, grounds for dismissal." She clasped her hands. "We'd like to offer reinstatement, with the promotion and compensation package you requested 6 months ago, plus 10%. I took a breath, let the silence stretch. "That's generous," I said, "but unnecessary. I've already accepted a role elsewhere." Meredith studied me for a long moment. "Crescent Bay?" Again, I gave no confirmation, just a quiet, practiced smile. "You're under no obligation," she said finally. "But may I ask, what could we have done differently?" I met her eyes. No bitterness, just truth. Recognize my worth before I had to leave to find it. She nodded. "Fair." I stood. "I gave this company 6 years, and in return I was called disloyal for exploring growth." Meredith didn't argue, didn't deflect. As I walked toward the elevator for the last time, something shifted inside me. This wasn't revenge. This was resolution. Rebecca had tried to control the narrative, but now I owned it, and I was walking away, not as the girl who got fired, but as the woman they never should have let go. My first official day at Crescent Bay felt like stepping into another universe. Gone were the beige cubicle walls, the hushed whispers of a fearful team, the heavy tension of begging for permission to grow. Here the air buzzed with possibility, collaboration, vision, momentum. Ethan greeted me personally at 9 a.m., walking me through the floor and introducing me to my new team. "Everyone," he said, stopping in front of a sleek, glass-walled meeting pod. "This is Savannah Blake, our new Director of Client Strategy. She's not just a new face-ish, someone many of you already know by reputation." The team clapped. Actual applause, not polite, genuine. I smiled, but inside I was steadying myself. This wasn't just a new job. This was a chance to build something better, cleaner, stronger. After brief intros and coffee, Ethan asked me to join the executive team for a strategy session. I hadn't expected that. Day one, and I was already walking into a C-level meeting. The conference room overlooked Elliott Bay, sunlight bouncing off the water. Around the table sat the company's CMO, CFO, legal counsel, and Ethan at the head. "We've been holding on this discussion until Savannah joined," Ethan said. "She's uniquely positioned to offer perspective." I nodded, unsure what we were discussing until the next slide loaded on the screen. Summit Edge Marketing, Contract Renewal Review. My throat tightened for a beat. I kept my face composed. "We've worked with Summit Edge for several years," said the CMO. "But performance outside of Savannah's direct work has been inconsistent. Their contract's up next month." Ethan looked at me. "I know it's early, but we'd value your input. You understand their structure better than anyone here. Frankly, you held that account together." I took a breath, glanced at the slide. Numbers, campaign data, declining delivery metrics. No Rebecca Sloan, just the facts. "Let's approach this like any other partner," I said evenly. "Evaluate on capability, consistency, and strategic alignment, not emotion." The CFO nodded. "We've already gathered 3 competing agency proposals. Let's add a full performance audit this week." Ethan glanced around the room. "Everyone aligned?" Heads nodded. The meeting moved on. But as I sat there, pen in hand, I realized something powerful. I wasn't the one on trial anymore. They were, and I wouldn't have to retaliate or raise my voice. All I had to do was tell the truth. The email was scheduled to send at exactly 11 a.m. on Wednesday 1 week to the minute since Rebecca Sloan had handed me my company ID and told me I was done. Now, I was the one closing the door. The Crescent Bay executive team had met 3 times over the past few days. We'd reviewed new proposals, reevaluated metrics, and studied account performance data with clinical precision. In the end, it was unanimous. Summit Edge was no longer a fit. The CMO turned to me at the end of the final meeting. "You'll handle the communication, correct?" I nodded. "Yes, I'll draft and send it. They deserve a direct professional close." And that's exactly what I gave them. Subject: Transition of Marketing Services. Dear Summit Edge team, after careful evaluation of our evolving brand and performance needs, Crescent Bay Solutions has decided to transition our marketing partnership. Effective immediately, all active projects will be reassigned and concluded by end of business Friday. Addison Walker, pardon me, I corrected it. Savannah Blake, Director of Client Strategy, will oversee the transition process. We appreciate the work Summit Edge has provided over the past several years and wish your team continued success. Regards, Ethan Cross, CEO, Crescent Bay Solutions. It was simple, clean, professional, and final. But I knew exactly what it would feel like when that email landed on Rebecca's screen. The moment the realization hit that she hadn't just lost a disloyal employee, she'd lost her biggest client, nearly 30% of Summit Edge's revenue. And more importantly, the bridge she thought she had burned now controlled the flames. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Around 3 p.m., a message from Thomas, Summit Edge's lead IT guy, and my old work ally, popped up on my personal phone. "Rebecca's been in emergency meetings since the email hit. The board is furious. The office is in chaos. And rumor is, you're the one managing the offboarding." I smiled, just slightly. Not out of spite, out of closure. Another ping Jessica, the receptionist. "You should have seen her face when she realized it was you overseeing the transition. The whole office knows now. We're all rooting for you." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I opened my laptop and began preparing the offboarding timeline. No drama, no bitterness. Just clear tasks, precise deadlines. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't fight. It's led quietly, steadily, and completely on your own terms. A week after the final offboarding call with Summit Edge, my inbox was calm. No chaos, no fires, no last-minute demands. Only clarity. The transition had gone smoothly on paper. But I could imagine what was happening behind the scenes at my former company. Rumors, resignations, finger-pointing, desperate attempts to spin the narrative. I didn't indulge in the drama. I didn't scroll LinkedIn to track who was updating their resumes or reposting loyalty over ambition quotes. I had other things to do. My team at Crescent Bay was thriving. We'd secured 2 new partnerships and were mid-pitch for a national campaign with a tech conglomerate. Asked me to join the Strategic Growth Committee. I was finally in the room, not waiting outside it. One afternoon, after wrapping a client presentation, I stepped out onto the terrace of our downtown Seattle office. The view stretched across Puget Sound, sunlight dancing on the water. I pulled my phone from my blazer pocket. A new message. From Rebecca Sloan. Subject: conversation? He stared at it. No anger rose. No tension. Just silence. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because I knew exactly what she wanted to say. Some version of, we made a mistake. Some version of, come back. Some version of, you mattered more than we realized. But the truth? I didn't need any of it. Recognition given too late is not reconciliation, it's damage control. And I wasn't here to be repaired. I was here to build. As I looked out at the skyline, I thought about every person who's ever been passed over, underestimated, or labeled too ambitious, too impatient, or worse, not enough. I thought about every, maybe next quarter, every, it's not personal, every fake smile across a desk that was never going to say yes. And I thought about the day I finally stopped asking for permission. That was the day everything changed. Because the thing about quiet professionals like me, we don't burn bridges. We outgrow them. And sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's waking up every morning knowing that your time, your talent, and your energy finally belong to you. If you've ever been passed over, if you've ever watched someone less capable get promoted because they played the game louder, if you've ever stayed loyal to a place that didn't know how to value you, then maybe you saw a piece of yourself in my story. I didn't share this to shame anyone. Not Rebecca, not Summit Edge. I shared it because for too long I believed silence was professionalism. I believed that if I just worked harder, smiled more, proved myself over and over, eventually, someone would notice. But here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes they won't. Because they're not meant to. And that's not your failure. That's their limitation. The moment I stopped chasing recognition and started building for myself, that's when everything changed. So if you're standing where I once stood, unsure whether to stay or walk away, let this be your sign. You're not disloyal for wanting more. You're not difficult for asking to be treated fairly. You're not wrong for choosing yourself. Because your worth, it was never up for debate. It was yours all along. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.